Good morning and welcome to the Daily Connect. My name is Raymond and I'm so glad you could be a part of this time together. We're looking at God's Word. We are seeing where the Lord is leading us and who the Lord is calling us to be. Today is Monday and it is technically a still Passion Month, if you will, because looking at Scripture, we recall that Jesus would spend an additional 40 days on earth after his initial appearance to Mary Magdalene, and he would spend this time with his people, with the people that have been very close to him, the people that wanted to know that his message has power and carries authority. So we are still in Passion Month, if you will, for at least the next 40 days. So with that in mind, we're going to start into a new book of the Bible. You know, kind of as we study this book of Deuteronomy, let's see how it connects with Jesus. See how it points to Jesus, as I always say, how the Old Testament points forward to Jesus and how the New Testament points back to Jesus. What is this going to speak about Jesus? So let's find out. Good morning to each and every one of you. Good morning to you, Rich, Jeanette, Esther, Michael, Joanna. Thank you so much, everyone. And to everyone else who's joining live, pop in, say hi. Hey, my name is, or just greet each other. Let's encourage one another. Let's remind each other that we are in this together. And likewise, let's grab a comfortable chair, something warm to drink, and let's take a look at Deuteronomy, and let's see where the Lord leads us. So again, we're going through the book of Deuteronomy, and it follows along after the book of Numbers. If you're joining for the very first time, it is a really good book, and well, I'll tell you a little bit more about the setting, which is actually the title, the covenant setting, a copy of the law, Deuteronomy chapter 1, and we're just going to look at the first handful of verses here. Now, let's first start off looking at a little bit of the context. What are some things that we could say about this book? Just from reading like an introduction about the book of Deuteronomy, what are some things that we can learn about it to kind of set our expectations going into this? Well, first off, it is the last of the first 5 books of the Bible, what we know as the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and then here we have Deuteronomy. So it's the last of the first 5 books of the Bible, what we call the Pentateuch, or it's also known as the Torah. We also see that it summarizes certain components from Exodus and Numbers, particularly the narratives, some of the stories that we read in Exodus and Numbers. And then it also recounts some of summarizes, revisits the laws that were introduced, that were brought up in Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. Again, if you've gone through the book of Exodus, you'll know that there's the 10 Commandments are included in that. In Leviticus, all the laws around worship and cleanliness. And then likewise in the book of Numbers, about the covenant and different things around, maintaining cleanliness, and then at the same time, the elements to worship, the things to include with your sacrifices. So there's a lot of things that Deuteronomy revisits. It also contains some of the, you could say, the sermons from Moses before he passes away, and at the same time, it contains Moses' farewell message, amongst all things. So this letter, or this book, contains a lot of different elements that we're familiar with. If you've looked at it at the previous books before, Excuse me. And then at the same time, it also prepares the nation for what is to come. Excuse me. And then one other thing to note. Excuse me. Whew. The name of the book itself, Deuteronomy, is derived from the Greek generally speaking, and it means second law. But not to say that it is second law in addition to the first law, but it's more of a it's probably best understood as a copy of the law. As I mentioned earlier, this revisits a lot of the laws that were set out in the previous books, and so this is kind of a reprint of all of that, as well as the fact that this is in the Hebrew, it is understood as Debian or Debian. Anyways, the Hebrew word means words, the plural form of word. It's the words of Moses. And one other thing to note about the setting here, this before I jump into that, let's just look at the first 5 verses of this chapter here. So what do we see? These are the words that Moses spoke to all Israel beyond the Jordan in the wilderness, in the Arabah, opposite Suf, between Paran and Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth, and Dizahab. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. In the 40th year, on the first day of the 11th month, Moses spoke to the people of Israel according to all that the Lord had given them in commandment to them. After he had defeated Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth and in Edrei, beyond the Jordan, in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to explain this law, saying, and we're going to stop there for today, but just in these verses here, what are we learning? Well, there's a number of things that we're seeing here. Number one, we get this the sense of the setting of what is to come. I mean, again, the understanding. If you've read through the book of Deuteronomy, you'll know that this is really a revisit or a refresh of the covenant that the Lord made with the nation of Israel. And right here, these are the settings for that covenant. And I think it's important to remember the time and place where the covenant was made or remade. And first, we learn a little bit about the geography of this covenant setting. And here they're at this desert east of the Jordan. Arabah can be translated as Aqaba. And if you're familiar with the Jordan Israel area, there is the Sea of Aqaba that is just below the Dead Sea, and so there's a lot of places that are listed here that are not known, but we do know some of them. There's mention of Paran. There's mention of Horeb. So we get a general sense of where this may be or how it is related. And well, I'll show you a map right now. And if you want to take a closer look at the map, there's a link in the description below that you can click on, or you can go to see this map. And so here we see that this is the from Egypt all the way over to Mount Sinai, or also known as Horeb, down in the south there. And the mention of 11 days journey from Horeb or Mount Sinai up to Kadesh Barnea, which is towards the middle of the middle right of this map. You'll see that that's about 11 days journey. And so what do we see here? This is it's an 11 days journey, probably in contrast to the 40 years of traveling that they have done. And so again, the setting here, the context here is that they have defeated the Amorites, the Sihon and Og. They have landed at Moab, the desert or the plains of Moab, and they're about to enter into the promised land. And this carries on from the context that we learn of at the end of Numbers. So they're getting ready to go in, and they already received a series of laws and expectations about the division of the land, their inheritance that they're going to receive. And here we get into kind of reestablishing the covenant. Now that you're going to enter into this land, you got to be reminded of the culture that you are to take up. You know, all these years that they've been wandering in the desert, they've been, in a sense, God has been preparing them for a brand new culture, a brand new nation that's going to be formed out of all this. And so Deuteronomy plays a very important role of laying down, once again, perhaps a really good distillation of all the laws that God has revealed to them regarding this new life that they're to have. So again, that map you can click on in the description below. But let's continue here. So let's go back to this. So again, it summarizes the books that we have read. If you've been following along on my live stream, oops. Let's go back. All right, and then also I mentioned about how the names are derived. The names. No, that's the wrong slide. Let me go over here. Okay. So again, this is the geography. We get a sense of the geography here. They're east of the Jordan now. They're in the plains of Moab. The timing of this is also the 40th year. And again, this is the 40th year with respect to the time that they left Egypt, the Exodus. And the date and the context around that puts it around the January, February timeframe of the Gregorian calendar. And it's about 2 months, approximately 2 months before the passing of Moses. And so that mention of the Sihon and Og, that looks back to Numbers chapter 21, when they encountered the Amorites, when they wanted to pass through the land peacefully, but the Amorites came and warred with Israel. Well, they were met with defeat as Israel just pretty much marched right over them. And what else do we see? Horeb is going to be mentioned a number of times in the book of Deuteronomy. This is, you could say, this is the favored name that Deuteronomy uses with regards to what we know as Mount Sinai. Also, again, 11 days journey. That's 140 miles from Mount Sinai to Kadesh Barnea. And again, as I mentioned, is this perhaps a contrast? You know, it only takes 11 days to travel this distance, but they've spent 40 years, you know, they're on the 40th year here of this journey through the wilderness. So it's been a slow progress, but it is with a purpose, a reason, because of the disobedience of that first generation that left Egypt. They lacked that obedience to to what God was calling them to do. And then also Moses is found here as the spokesperson for God, and God's going to be speaking through Moses to the people. All these laws, all these things that we're going to revisit. In fact, starting from verse 6 all the way to chapter 4, we are just going to revisit all of the narratives. It's kind of a historical recounting of everything that the nation has gone through. And then finally, at the very beginning, words and verse 1 is equivalent to the law in verse 5. So they're interchangeable in this context. So it's best to understand. Anytime here it says these are the words of God, these are the laws of God through Moses. Wow. So looking at just these first 5 verses and understanding the larger context of all this about the book of Deuteronomy. Excuse me. Oh my. What are we learning out of all this? What's your big takeaway? Well, for me, it comes down to a question, and I think it's one that we should all be mindful of. Do we recall the place and time of the covenant that we made with the Lord? When you made that decision for Jesus in our modern day context, do you remember where you were? Do you remember when it was? Because as I often share in times of counseling, especially with couples, it's important to remember that anchor, the place that you always go back to with regards to a covenant that you made. Do you have that anchor? Do you have that thing that, regardless of all that goes on here, are you able to go back to? If you have really bad arguments or disputes or disagreements, you go back to the anchor and you remind yourself, this is why we are here. This is why we are together. And for the people here, the first 5 verses sets the anchor for this covenant. Remember this place in the plains of Moab. Sorry. At this place, at this time, remember when Moses brought all this up, revisiting the history, revisiting the laws. Remember the covenant. Do you remember the place and time for your covenant? I think it's important. Think about it, reflect on it, and hold on to it. Amen. Once again, thank you everyone for sharing this time together. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you just going through with me in each of these books of the Bible. And I will say, the more we study a particular book, and I don't know about you, but at least for me, the more I study a book, the smaller it becomes. It doesn't become so wieldy and so big, but in fact, it's something that becomes very manageable. Once we understand the book of Leviticus, it's no longer that boring book of all these different laws. It's actually a book about the details around worship, and same thing with Numbers, the organization of worship around the tent of meeting and the tabernacle, for instance. And then for Deuteronomy, same thing. I really believe that the more we study this, the smaller this book becomes, the more powerful it is for us to use it in our lives and to live according to a lot of the teachings here, and especially how it connects with the teachings of Jesus. So anyways, lots of good stuff coming up. I look forward to going through the book of Deuteronomy with you all. God bless you guys. Thank you so much, and have a great week. I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, right? And invite your friends. Let's go through this book together. Have a great day. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care.